My name is Iris Marlowe. I am 32 years old, and until that morning, I thought the lock on my apartment door was the one part of my life my family could not reach. I lived alone in a smart building in Seattle, worked long hours as a cybersecurity risk analyst, and kept my home quiet on purpose. No toys on the floor, no spare bedrooms waiting for someone else's emergency, no one walking in unless I said they could. Then, at 11:43 on a rainy Thursday night, my phone lit up while I was reviewing a security audit for work. The message was not a question, it was an order. His two kids were coming over the next morning, and I was going to watch them. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, waiting for the part where he asked politely, or apologized for the short notice, or explained why he thought he had the right to volunteer my entire day. That part never came. I typed back, "No, I am not available." His reply came almost instantly. "Doesn't matter. Mom gave me your key." Something inside me went completely still. Not angry, not loud, just cold. I looked across my apartment at the front door, then at the little brass key hook by the kitchen, and I realized this was never about babysitting. This was about access. To my home, my time, my money, and my peace. So I did not call him. I did not beg. I did not explain myself to people who had already decided my answer did not matter. I took screenshots, opened my building app, called the front desk, and asked them to disable every outside access connected to my unit. Then I requested an emergency lock change before sunrise. Before I tell you what happened when he showed up the next morning with two kids and a plan that no longer worked, tell me what the weather feels like where you are today. Does it match your mood? Or is it hiding something too? I used to think independence meant paying my own rent, buying my own groceries, and not needing anyone to rescue me when life got hard. But in my family, independence had slowly turned into something else. It meant I was available. It meant I had extra. It meant every time someone else made a bad decision, my bank account became the emergency exit. I lived in South Lake Union in a glass apartment building full of people who worked too much and slept too little. My unit was small but expensive, with a smart lock, a 24-hour front desk, and a view of the Space Needle if I stood near the kitchen window. I chose that place because it felt safe, controlled, mine. I worked in cybersecurity risk for a fintech company, which meant my job was noticing weak points before someone exploited them. The cruel joke was that I had missed the biggest weak point in my own life for years. His name was Derek Marlowe, my older brother. 35, sales manager for a medical device company, always talking like his next commission check would change everything, always broke before it arrived. His wife, Fiona, worked at a boutique and filled her social media with coffee, clothes, spa days, and hotel mirrors. They had two kids, Mia, 7, and Caleb, 5. I loved those kids, and everyone knew it. My mother, Priscilla, knew it best. She had been a school administrator for almost 30 years, and she spoke to adults like she still controlled a hallway full of students. Firm voice, raised eyebrows, no debate. When I got a bonus, Derek needed help with his SUV. When I saved money, Fiona needed help with a credit card bill. When I started working from home twice a week, my mother decided I was available for family errands and emergencies. In 26 months, I had sent $11,600, $1,900 for Derek's SUV after he ignored a warning light, $2,400 for his credit card, $1,300 for Mia's summer program, $1,100 for Caleb's birthday party. Then groceries, gas, school supplies, and bills that were always urgent. Every time I hesitated, I heard the same sentence. You are single. You do not have children. You can help. So when Derek texted me that Thursday night, I should have been shocked, but a part of me had been waiting for them to escalate. He said he and Fiona had a leadership retreat in San Diego. Their flight was early, and the kids would stay with me because my apartment was closer to the airport. He did not ask if I had work. He did not ask if I had plans. He simply assigned me a job and expected me to obey. I replied, "I am not available. Find someone else." His answer came back fast. "Stop being dramatic. Mom gave me your key and the spare fob. We will drop them off at 7. I read it 3 times. Then I remembered the pipe leak 2 years earlier, when I gave my mother a spare key so maintenance could enter while I was out of town. She promised to return it. She never did. I had treated a key like a small thing. To them, it had become permission. I did not answer Derek again. I opened my building app and changed my resident access settings. Then I called the front desk. Aaron Price was working the night shift. When he answered, I gave my name, my unit number, and said an unauthorized family member had a key and might attempt to enter with 2 minors the next morning. His voice became professional immediately. He asked if I wanted the spare fob disabled. I said yes. He asked if my family should be removed from my approved visitor list. I said yes. Then I requested an emergency lock change before morning. Maintenance could reset the smart lock within the hour. I told him to bill me whatever it cost. After hanging up, I took screenshots of every text, emailed the building manager, downloaded my call log, and created a folder on my laptop called Family Boundary Incident. Derek thought he had my key. He had no idea I was finally taking back the door. By midnight, my apartment looked calm from the outside. Rain tapped against the windows. A mug of tea sat untouched on my desk. My work laptop still showed the audit report due the next morning, but my personal laptop had become the center of something bigger. I opened a blank document and titled it Unauthorized Access Timeline. It felt extreme for a second, until I looked at Derek's message again. Mom gave me your key. We will drop them off at 7. That was not a request. That was a plan built around violating my home. So I started writing everything down. 11:43 p.m., Derek informs me that his children will be dropped off at my apartment. 11:46 p.m., I decline and state I am unavailable. 11:48 p.m., Derek states that our mother gave him my key and spare building fob. 11:55 p.m., I call the front desk and report unauthorized access. 12:07 a.m., building disables the spare fob. 12:22 a.m., emergency maintenance is scheduled to rekey the smart lock. The more I typed, the steadier I felt. Documentation did not cry. Documentation did not get guilt-tripped. Documentation did not care if my mother raised her voice. Then I opened my banking history. I searched Derek's name, then Fiona's, then my mother's. Transfer after transfer appeared, each one attached to a story I had believed just enough to send money. I exported everything into a spreadsheet and added notes beside each payment. SUV repair, credit card emergency, summer program, birthday party, groceries, dental bill, school supplies. I was halfway through labeling the transactions when my phone rang. Mom. I started a voice recording on my tablet and answered on speaker. She did not say hello. She said, "What did you do to the building access?" Her voice was sharp, like I had stolen something from her. I said, "I removed unauthorized access to my apartment." She snapped that Derek was my brother, not a stranger. I told her a brother can still be unauthorized. That made her furious. She said 2 children were counting on me. Fiona was exhausted. Derek had an important work retreat, and I was turning a simple favor into a legal drama. I stayed quiet. I had learned that if I let my mother talk long enough, she eventually said the part she should have hidden. She did. She told me they planned it this way because they knew I would say no if they asked too early. She said she gave Derek the key because I always resisted at first, but came around once the kids were involved. I looked at the recording timer and felt my stomach drop. It was not desperate. It was planned. I said, "A key is not consent." She laughed coldly and told me not to use corporate language with her. She said I was a daughter and a sister before I was whatever title my company gave me. I said I was also a tenant, an adult, and the only person who decided who entered my home. Her voice rose. She said Seattle had made me selfish. She said women with no husbands and no children always started thinking their time mattered more than everyone else's. The old guilt moved in my chest. Then I looked at the spreadsheet. $11,600, 26 months. I started reading amounts out loud. $1,900 for Derek's SUV, $2,400 for his credit card, $1,300 for Mia's summer program, $1,100 for Caleb's birthday party. My mother told me to stop. I kept going. $700 for groceries, $400 for a hotel deposit Fiona never repaid, $600 for a late utility bill. My mother shouted my name. I said, "I am not attacking you. I am being accurate." She said money was not the point. I said money was always the point when they needed mine. Then she said, "If you do not open that door tomorrow, do not call me your mother again." For a moment the apartment went silent. I thought it would break me. Instead, it clarified everything. I said, "If being your daughter means surrendering my home, my money, and my right to say no, then I cannot afford the role anymore." She called me cruel. I said goodnight and ended the call. My hands shook, but I did not cry. I saved the recording, exported the spreadsheet as a PDF, and attached everything to an email to my father, Graham. He had always been the quiet one, hidden behind the television, the newspaper, and my mother's voice. I wrote one sentence. "Dad, I want you to see what actually happened before anyone tells you who to blame." Then I hit send. 5 minutes later, it showed as read. He did not reply. Somehow, that hurt more than my mother yelling, but it also told me something I needed to accept. Silence can be a choice, and his silence had helped build this. Have you ever felt exhausted because your own family treated love like an unlimited checkbook? That night, I finally understood that love without respect is not love. It is control wearing a family name. I slept for maybe 90 minutes. At 6:15, I gave up and got dressed in black jeans, a gray sweater, and the coat I wore when I wanted to look calm. By 6:40, I was sitting in a coffee shop across the street from my building with my laptop open and nothing on the screen making sense. My audit report was done. I had submitted it at 4:30 in the morning. My body was tired, but my mind felt painfully alert. At 6:58, my building app sent a notification. Someone had attempted access with a disabled fob. Once, then again, then a third time. My coffee suddenly tasted like metal. A text from Aaron appeared. "They are here." I looked through the window and saw Derek's dark SUV parked at the curb. The back hatch was open. Two little rolling suitcases sat on the sidewalk, one pink, one blue. Mia stood beside them holding a stuffed rabbit. Caleb had a dinosaur backpack almost as big as his body. Fiona wore airport clothes, white sneakers, a cream coat, sunglasses on her head even though the sky was gray. Derek was stabbing at the call box like pressing harder would make it obey him. Then my mother stepped out of the passenger side. Of course she was there. Priscilla Marlowe never missed a performance where she expected to be the judge. I watched them enter the lobby after another resident came out. Aaron had already moved near the elevators. I could see his posture through the glass. Polite, firm, blocking without touching anyone. Derek held up a key. Fiona kept checking her phone. My mother pointed toward the elevators like she owned the building. Then a police cruiser pulled up behind Derek's SUV. No sirens, no drama. Just two officers stepping into the rain. My knees weakened under the table. Aaron had told me management might call the non-emergency line if my family attempted entry with children after being denied. Still, seeing officers made everything real. I closed my laptop and walked across the street. I used the side entrance and came into the lobby near the package room. Derek saw me first. His face changed from anger to relief for half a second, like he still believed my appearance meant surrender. Then he saw I was not rushing toward the kids. I was not apologizing. I was not reaching for suitcases. His relief disappeared. "There you are," he said loudly. "Tell this guy to let us up." I looked at Aaron. He asked, "Do you authorize these visitors to enter your unit?" I said, "No." Fiona made a sound like I had slapped her. Derek stepped closer. "Iris, stop this. We have a flight." I said, "I know. That is why you should not have built your travel plan around my consent without getting it." One officer, Ramirez, asked who had agreed to take responsibility for the children. Derek said, "She is their aunt." Officer Ramirez did not blink. That was not what I asked. Fiona said it was understood. I pulled out my phone and showed the officer my response. "No, I am not available." Then I showed Derek's reply. "Doesn't matter. Mom gave me your key." Officer Ramirez read it twice. The second officer, Cole, asked Derek if he had attempted to use a key to access my apartment after I refused childcare. Derek said, "It is not like that." My mother stepped forward and said this was a family misunderstanding. Officer Cole said family misunderstandings did not give anyone the right to enter a private residence. My mother's face tightened. She turned to me and said, "You are humiliating us." I said, "No. You plan to use my home without permission. I am refusing to hide it." Caleb started crying. Not loudly, just tired little sobs. That almost broke me. I crouched a few feet away and said gently, "Hey, buddy. You are not in trouble. None of this is your fault." Derek snapped, "Do not talk to him like you care." I stood up. Officer Ramirez told him to lower his voice. Fiona whispered that they were going to miss boarding. Derek pulled out his phone and started searching, probably for a sitter, probably for someone else to dump the problem on. My mother tried one last time. She said I was choosing a lock over blood. I said, "I am choosing consent over control." The lobby went quiet. A man near the elevator looked at the floor. A woman with a yoga mat stopped pretending she was not listening. Aaron printed a document and explained that due to the attempted unauthorized entry and disturbance, Derek, Fiona, and Priscilla would be removed from my visitor permissions. Officer Cole added that if they left the children in the lobby or tried to leave them with me after I refused, the incident could be documented as an abandonment concern. Fiona's face went pale. That was the moment the power shifted. They realized the world outside our family did not recognize my mother's rules. Derek stopped yelling. Fiona started calling emergency childcare services. My mother looked at me with cold anger and said, "You are no daughter of mine." I should have cried. Instead, I said, "Then stop trying to use my apartment like I am." 15 minutes later, Derek dragged the suitcases back toward the SUV, while Fiona argued on the phone about same-day childcare rates. My mother walked out first, stiff and furious. Mia looked back at me. I lifted my hand gently. She waved. That hurt more than anything. When the doors closed behind them, the lobby became strangely peaceful. Officer Ramirez handed me a card with the incident number and told me to keep my documentation. Aaron asked if I was okay. I said yes, but my voice did not sound like mine. I rode upstairs alone, locked the new lock behind me, and leaned against the door until my legs stopped shaking. For the first hour after they left, I did nothing. I sat on the floor by my front door with my coat still on and my phone face down beside me. My apartment was silent in the way I used to love, but now the silence felt huge. I kept seeing Caleb's backpack, Mia's wave, Fiona's pale face when the officer said abandonment concern, and my mother's expression when she realized I would not fold. Then my phone started vibrating. Derek. Fiona. My mother. Derek again. Then the texts came. You made my kids cry. You embarrassed us in front of cops. You owe us for the rebooking fee. This is insane. You need help. I muted the thread without opening most of them. At 10:30, I showered. At 11:15, I made toast and forgot to eat it. At noon, I stared at a work meeting invite until it expired. Then, just after 1, my cousin Ivy sent me a screenshot with one sentence. Please tell me this is not from today. It was Fiona's Instagram story. Blue pool, palm trees, 2 cocktails, a resort wristband on her wrist. The location tag said San Diego. The caption read, "Finally choosing peace." I stared until I started laughing. Not a happy laugh. It was the sound your body makes when the lie becomes too obvious to keep hurting the same way. They had made the flight, or changed it. Either way, the world had not ended. The kids had not been abandoned by fate. Derek and Fiona had found a solution as soon as the law told them I was not one. An hour later, Fiona posted another story from a hotel balcony, her hand linked with Derek's, ocean behind them, captioned, "Much needed reset." I screenshotted everything. At 4, my mother posted on Facebook. She did not name me, but she did not have to. Some parents give everything to their children and still get punished with cruelty. Pray for a mother whose heart was broken today. The comments came fast. People called her strong. People said adult children were selfish now. For about 30 seconds, I almost commented. Then I stopped. My mother wanted a public emotional fight. She was good at those. I was good at evidence. So I opened my folder. I added the incident number, Fiona's resort stories, Derek's texts, my mother's recording, and the transfer history. Then I wrote one calm message and sent it to Aunt Elaine, Uncle Robert, Cousin Ivy, my father, and my mother's older cousin Marcus. The message said, "You may hear that I abandoned my niece and nephew this morning. That is not true. I was informed, not asked, that I would be babysitting. I refused in writing." My mother gave Derek an old key to my apartment without my consent. They attempted to enter anyway. Building security and police were present because of the unauthorized access issue. I am not asking anyone to fight for me. I just want the facts documented. Then I attached everything. 23 minutes later, the family group chat exploded. Aunt Elaine wrote first. "Priscilla, why did Derek have Iris's key?" My mother replied that people were twisting a private matter. Uncle Robert asked, "Private matter? There is a police incident number." Ivy posted that Fiona was at a resort after claiming there was no other option for the kids. Then Marcus asked the question that changed the whole tone. If Iris said no, why did anyone go to her building at all? My mother did not answer. Derek jumped in and said I had always helped before, so he assumed I would do the right thing. Aunt Elaine answered, "Helping before is not consent forever." I read that sentence 3 times. It felt like someone had opened a window in a room I had been trapped in for years. Then the money came up. Uncle Robert had opened the spreadsheet. He wrote, $11,600? Derek, are you serious? Derek said I was exaggerating normal family help. I uploaded one screenshot. Just one. The transfer for $2,400 with Derek's message above it saying he would pay me back in 2 weeks. He never had. The chat went silent. Then my father wrote, "Iris said no." That should have been the end of it. I stared at those words until my eyes blurred. It was not a speech. It did not erase years of silence, but it was the first time he had contradicted my mother in front of the family. My mother left the group chat. Fiona deleted her resort story, but Ivy had saved it. Derek sent me one private message. Hope you are proud of yourself. I did not respond. Pride was not the feeling. Relief was closer. Grief too. When a family splits into sides, would you choose uncomfortable truth or fake peace? That day, I learned that fake peace is expensive. It costs your time, your money, your privacy, and eventually your self-respect. The first thing I canceled was the recurring transfer to my mother. $200 on the first of every month, labeled household help. I had set it up after she said prescriptions and groceries were getting harder to manage. I had not thought about it in almost a year. It just left my account quietly, like a leak behind a wall. I clicked cancel and waited for guilt to hit me. It came, but weaker than usual. Then I canceled the family streaming account Derek used for free. I removed Fiona from my warehouse membership. I changed every password connected to my apartment, bank, phone plan, delivery apps, and emergency contacts. I called the building manager and confirmed in writing that no one in my family had access to my unit. By the end of that afternoon, my life looked the same, but it felt like I had locked more than one door. My mother tried calling from unknown numbers for 3 days. Derek sent long messages that began angry, turned wounded, then ended with money. He wanted me to cover the same day sitter and the flight change fee because, in his words, my stunt created the expense. I blocked him. Fiona sent one message saying the kids were confused and I should be ashamed. I almost replied. I almost said children are confused when adults lie to them. But I let silence answer. A week later, I booked therapy. I told myself it was just to process the incident, but within 20 minutes, I was talking about being 16 and giving half my grocery store paycheck to my mother because Derek needed gas money. I talked about Christmas gifts I bought and never got credit for. Family dinners where my mother praised Derek for showing up while ignoring that I had paid for half the food, and birthdays where I was expected to bring expensive presents because I had no children. The therapist listened, then said something that made me freeze. Your family made you their safety net, and then they called it love, so you would not question the weight. I had spent years believing I was strong because everyone leaned on me. I had never considered that maybe I was tired because they were not supposed to lean that hard. After that, I started practicing small acts of ownership. I bought an ergonomic chair I had wanted for months instead of saving the money for someone else's emergency. I joined a boxing class 2 blocks away and discovered that hitting a bag for 45 minutes did more for my anger than pretending I was above it. I took a weekend trip to Portland with a friend named Lena and did not check my phone every 10 minutes. We ate ramen, walked through bookstores, and spent too much on coffee. For the first time in years, I bought something unnecessary and did not compare it to Derek's bills. 3 weeks after the lobby incident, my father called. I almost did not answer. When I did, he said my name like he had practiced it. Iris. Then silence. Finally, he said, I read everything. I saw the transfers. I heard your mother on the recording. Another pause. I should have stepped in years ago. My throat tightened. He said he had told himself it was not his business because I was an adult, but that was an excuse. It was easier to let my mother run the family than to challenge her. Then he said the words I did not know I needed. You were right to change the locks. I pressed my hand over my eyes and said nothing. He did not suddenly become a different man, but he apologized without asking me to comfort him, and that mattered. 4 months passed before Derek contacted me again from a new number. The message was short, not asking for money. I stared at it before reading the next one. We hired a sitter for Fiona's work conference next month. It is expensive. Then another bubble appeared. I guess that is what we should have done before. I waited for an apology. It did not really come. He wrote, I still think you went too far with the cops, but I get why you were mad. Old Iris would have accepted that as enough, and rushed to make peace. New Iris understood that half accountability was still mostly avoidance. I replied, I am glad you arranged care for your children. I will not be available as a backup plan anymore. He wrote, understood. Not warm, not loving, but different. My mother posted vague quotes about forgiveness and ungrateful hearts, but the family no longer rushed to comfort her. Fiona's posts changed too. Less luxury, fewer captions about deserving rest. Derek sold the SUV 6 months later. Uncle Robert told me nobody wanted to lend him money anymore because now everyone asked what happened to the last person who helped him. That should have felt victorious. It did not. It felt like freedom. A year after the morning in the lobby, I moved into a larger apartment 7 floors higher in the same neighborhood. It had a separate office, a real dining table, and windows that caught the sunset when Seattle allowed one. The first night there, I stood in the empty living room holding the only 2 keys. One stayed with me. The other went to Lena, sealed in an envelope, after she promised never to use it unless I was unconscious or the building was on fire. We laughed, but both of us knew why the promise mattered. A key is not just metal. Sometimes it is trust. Sometimes it is access. Sometimes it is the difference between generosity and invasion. My career changed too. The audit I finished the night everything fell apart led to a bigger role. 6 months later, I was promoted to compliance lead. Better pay, more control, and enough savings that emergencies no longer felt like storms outside my door. For years, money had passed through my hands like I was only holding it until someone else needed it more. Now I watched my savings grow and felt something deeper than comfort. I felt evidence. Evidence that my life worked when I stopped funding other people's refusal to plan. I still loved Mia and Caleb. That never changed. I sent birthday cards through my father. Simple ones. No cash inside. No expensive gifts designed to prove I was still good. Just cards. Just love without surrender. Derek and Fiona adjusted because they had to. They hired sitters. They budgeted. They sold the SUV and bought something used. Fiona took on more hours at the boutique and stopped posting every restaurant meal like it was an achievement. Derek became quieter in family spaces, not humble exactly, but less certain that everyone would clap when he complained. My mother changed the least. She still posted about loyalty and family values. She still believed forgiveness meant everyone returning to the roles she preferred. But people listened differently now. That was one consequence she hated most. Her voice still had power, just not automatic power. The next time I saw them all was at a cousin's wedding outside Tacoma. I arrived in a navy dress, alone, and for once that word did not feel like an accusation. It felt peaceful. At the reception, I sat with cousins who asked about my job, my apartment, my boxing class, and my trip to Portland. Nobody asked why I had not babysat. Nobody asked when I would make things right. The truth had already done its work. During cocktail hour, I saw my mother near the dessert table. She looked older, though maybe that was because I no longer saw her as the person who decided the size of the room. Our eyes met. She looked away first. Later, Derek approached me near the hallway. Fiona stayed behind him, holding Caleb's hand while Mia leaned against her side looking sleepy. Derek cleared his throat and said the kids missed me. I looked at them and smiled. I miss them too, I said. Mia waved. Caleb hid behind Fiona's coat. Derek shifted and said they were doing okay. Childcare was expensive, but they were figuring it out. I said, that is good. I meant it. Then he said, I should not have brought them to your building that morning. It was not a full apology for the years of money, the entitlement, the key, the threats, or the way he let our mother turn me into the villain. But it was one true sentence, and sometimes one true sentence is where accountability starts. I said, no, you should not have. He nodded. No argument, no performance, just a nod. That was enough for the moment. Near the end of the night, my father walked me to my car. Before I got in, he said, "You look lighter." I smiled because it was true. He said he was proud of me. Not for the promotion, not for the apartment. For standing up and staying standing when the guilt came. Driving home, I thought about how strange healing is. It does not always look like everyone apologizing and sitting around the same table again. Sometimes healing looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like a quiet phone. Sometimes it looks like spending your own money on your own life without asking invisible permission from people who trained you to feel selfish. I did not destroy my family. I did not punish children. I did not become cruel. I simply stopped confusing love with unlimited access. That is the lesson I wish someone had taught me earlier. Family is not an excuse to use someone. Helping others is valuable, but only when it is freely given, not extracted through guilt. Boundaries are not selfish. They are a form of self-respect. And self-respect teaches everyone around you how responsibility is supposed to work. Love should create safety, not debt. The most educational truth I learned is that rescuing people from every consequence can stop them from growing. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for them is to say no, step back, and let adults carry the weight of their own choices. Today, when I look back, I realize changing the lock did not just protect my apartment. It changed my entire life.